Welcome back. We're talking about problems in our election system today and some of the key things that are keeping us from electing people that we think might bring change to our country. Um, 4 or 5 issues I want to bring up today that I think are very basic that need to be changed if we're going to be able to elect people that reflect some of the values that we hear out in the public but never get brought up once people are elected. The first problem is with ballot access, just getting someone's name on the ballot to run for office. To do that, there are several impediments. When you go down to run for office, the first thing the clerk will ask you is for an entrance fee. The entrance fee to run for Congress in Georgia is about $5,000. Now, I think this is prohibitive. How many rank and file citizens can afford to risk $5,000 on the idea that they might win an office? If they don't, their family is out $5 grand. Uh, you could say, well, if they're not able to raise $5,000, then maybe they shouldn't, be a candidate. But on the other hand, if they do raise $5,000 and they're beholden to the people who gave them the money, and if those are all good citizens, that might be fine. But if it's Mobil Oil, it might not be as good. So, I can see a small fee, but I can't see one that's, over $1,000, for example, for a federal office, for the highest office in the land. That would be $50,000 to run for president, and I think that's would be, as much as I'd want to go. If we have 300 candidates running for president, that can collect $50,000. I don't believe we would have that problem. We might have 12, and we ought to be able to go through 12 names when we're voting. The next problem you're going to have when you go down to sign up to run for office is the clerk is going to ask you, do you want to run as a Republican or a Democrat or as an independent? If you want to run as a Republican or Democrat, you fill out a form. If you want to run as an independent, he or she will ask you to turn in 10,000 signatures from people who live in your congressional district, who are registered voters, and who have taken the time to fill out a form with their correct name, correct address, and maybe their phone number. I can't remember if it requires a phone number or not. But they will look it up. They'll compare it to what's on the voter list at the election office. If it doesn't match to the letter, they'll toss that name out. So to collect 10,000 signatures that meet that perfect criteria, it's pretty difficult. This man, Robert Fitzgerald Kennedy, is running for office as an independent this year in 2024. And when he looked at the difficulty of getting on the ballot as an independent, he collected $15 million just to get on the ballot in about 12 states. He's not even going to try to get on the ballot in all 50 states because of the signature requirements and other impediments. And sometimes he feels, I've listened to him talk on television, he feels like he'll have to go to court in some states to get on the ballot, and so that's why he needs all this money. Well, obviously, if a candidate has to collect $15 million to get on the ballot in 12 states, this is not democracy. So those are problems that have to be addressed before we can, say that we have a true democracy in America. It's just not tenable. Every election, we look at the candidates that we have and go, of all the people in America, these are the two we ended up with. And we're a little disappointed sometimes, particularly here lately. Well, it's going to be that way until we open the system up so other people can get on the ballot. That's the first thing, is getting on the ballot. The next thing is to break up the power of the political parties, because once you're in a political party, you're no longer independent to represent the views that you first had when you went down to the courthouse to sign up. You wanted to change the world, perhaps. You wanted to represent views that aren't being expressed by people who are in office now or people running. Or why else would you run? But when you go to the courthouse and you see that you have to either collect the signatures or you have to be in a Democratic Party or Republican Party, you have to look at those two parties and see which one most closely you identify with. And so once you're in there, then there's the compromises. They want you to back up the things that they're for. For example, in the Democratic Party, they have a list of things that they support, and they want you to support them too if you're going to be in their party. That makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is that, you don't really have any choice, practically speaking. And once you're in their party, then you have to toe the party line. That's a pretty good bit of power for a political party to have. And that might be one of the reasons why we don't have change in this country. We know, for example, if you're a progressive person, and some people consider me a progressive person, I think that I'm a fiscally responsible progressive. But say in 2016, Bernie Sanders made a really valiant run for the presidency and collected a lot of money, which really impressed me. I was wondering if that would ever be possible. He proved that it could be done, ran for office, and the progressives did not win. So they are in the Democratic Party. They're told to toe the line, and that was, if you remember, they were directly told that that's what they needed to do. And so when is their turn? I would say never. I don't think that the Democrats will ever give the progressives, if they were 1/3 of the party and the other 2/3 are the establishment, the establishment is going to rule that party that year and every year that they're in the majority. And so as long as progressives are under their tent, I don't see that the progressive issues will ever come to the public. How do you fight that? Well, you make it easier to get on the ballot and become your own person. Individuals should be able to run just as easy as someone who's a member of a political party. The next thing you could do is when you have a ballot, it should not say this person is a member of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. It ought just to be a list of people. It's convenient for people who are, say, for example, Republicans, to go down and go, I don't know anything about what's going on, but I just know I want to vote for people in the Republican Party. And they find that as a convenience. Well, it is convenience, but it's also a convenience for the people in power, because they don't care if you're necessarily involved and energized and familiar with the issues if you're just going to vote for their party members anyway. So I would say we should leave off the party identification on the ballot. That way, we all have an equal chance. People want to know who to vote for. They'll have to study up on it. Also, government is spending money on political parties. They help fund primaries, which, in my view, is maybe even unconstitutional. Why is the government spending money on something that really is a private matter? If you want to get together and start a political party, you can, but it shouldn't have anything to do with the government. So the government shouldn't be sponsoring primaries, and it shouldn't be giving money to the major parties who have a convention, and they do. The next thing that's a problem is the power of the special interest. Say, for example, you want to spend $5 million on a campaign, which is what some congressional campaigns cost these days. You've got to collect money. And so average rank and file citizens aren't accustomed to giving money for candidates. But as we saw in the election of Bernie Sanders, or the campaign of Bernie Sanders, people did give. What was it? $13.88 was the average contribution or whatever. And so it can be done if you have a candidate that speaks to you. You have to have something in the political process to win. It can't be, you can't just want to be and get elected. You have to win people over. And Bernie Sanders did, and showed us that even though money is an impediment, that individuals will contribute when there's something to contribute for them. Special interest oftentimes will give to both sides, or multiple candidates, because they want to have influence with whoever gets elected. And it's hard to compete with that. When a political action committee gives $1 million when you get elected, they call you, you're going to take the call. So how do you fight that? Well, one way to fight the power of special interests and the power of political action committees is to extend the sunshine laws, just a simple way of putting it, that we have in many states and many levels of government. I'm familiar with it at the commission level, where if you have 5 county commissioners, they can't get together and have breakfast together. They can't meet and discuss business or even meet for any reason unless they're at the commission meeting hall in a formal session, so that the press has a right to be there, will be, know that they're going to meet and can record anything that's transacted, or that the public citizens can come and view. And we can just extend that. That's because you have to find things that are legal that will pass the muster of the Supreme Court, because we've tried before to find ways to get at limiting the money in campaigns, and the Supreme Court keeps reversing that. But what would be legal would be to say that if you contribute money to a campaign, then you cannot talk to the candidate unless it's on record. So a fellow in a campaign, or whether he's won office, candidate's up there and wins and goes to Washington. Mobile Oil comes in and says, "I'd like to talk to the congressman." Fine. Then, put it on a camera, let them sit down at a table together, and everything is discussed to be on the internet that evening, and the secretary is sitting there recording, making a record of what's transpired. That way the public will know. And there has to be value to that, because the people value the sunshine laws. So at least we would know what's being conducted, and that would be a step in the right direction. The next thing that would be helpful, if you could get some of these other things done, if you didn't list Republican and Democrat on the ballot, gerrymandering would not be quite as essential. But the way the government is run now, the way elections are run now, gerrymandering has got the country divided up so that elections really, are so difficult. For example, in the state of Georgia, Georgia has elected primarily Republicans at the state house. So every 10 years there's a census. Georgia finds out how many citizens it has, and they need to divide the congressional districts up. And so they divide it up into, I think it's like 14 parts or so. And they look at each district, and since the Republicans are in control, they divide each district so that it has more Republicans in it than Democrats. They have a way of finding out how these people tend to vote some way or the other. They have, computer records. They put a lot into this because it's important. It's if you have more Republicans running in your district than Democrats, for example, then your election's going to be a lot easier. So you're going to be able to continue to elect Republicans, and that's happening all over the country. And if the Democrats were in charge, we can rest assured it would probably be the same way. So that dividing the districts up after the census has to be taken out of the control of the state house. Now, I don't know who you can put in control of that the Democrats and Republicans wouldn't try to come in and influence those people and have their own people on whatever committee or whatever board you had. You might could have the most effective thing we found so far is to have it go to the courts and let the court look at it and see if it's fair. And of course, they don't take it to court unless they think it's not fair. So it is a problem, and it's got to be addressed, or else, what good are elections? The last thing is really, in some ways, the most important. In 1948, we had a program called the Fairness Doctrine. And it was in effect from 1948 to 1987. And what the Fairness Doctrine said, it was in 1948, we didn't have cable or anything like this. We had broadcast television. It said anybody who wants an FCC license, anybody who wants to have a television station, when you have a political program on and you bring a guest on and they have one point of view, you have to have another guest that gives the opposing view. And that was to give you a fair and balanced presentation. And that really, really, really worked for all those decades until Ronald Reagan and really a few Democrats, the Democrats had to go along with that, gave that up in 1987. Well, as you know, in 1987, that's about the time we had political talk radio, and that's about the time that we had, not too many years later, we had the 24-hour news channels, and then we had the 24-hour political channels, and that's what we have today. They're very divisive. They give one side of the story. I won't say that they are blatantly dishonest. Sometimes they are, but oftentimes they just, leave out certain things, but they give you a slanted view, and we have divided our country that way. And that could all have been prevented if we would not have removed the fairness doctrine, and if we would reinstall the fairness doctrine, you would be surprised how many problems that would solve in the political arena. Those are some of the things that I feel are very important in basics to try to bring change and bring more democracy to America. And if you'll join me next time, we'll be talking about how to help the world have some of the benefits that America has. Thank you so very much. I hope to see you next time.